on the neck, and you always talk about how that's not focused enough in other areas of strength and conditioning. So why don't you take a few minutes to talk about that?
Well, neck training has been around for a long time, and I'll include the head, the jaw, the neck, and the upper back as a whole. I just don't know if it's been mainstreamed as much as the squat, the clean, and the bench press. I mean, if you go into an institution, whether it's high school or college or even the pros for that matter, and you look up on what most places would have as a record board, you don't have neck girth measurements, and you don't have neck strength, shrug, protrusion, lateral flexion. You don't have those up there, so they're not really like a wow kind of exercise, even though we can replace an ACL. We can fix or hopefully mend the pain that occurs in the low back, but you cannot replace your brain. So if you are having trouble with concussions in your program or the concussive forces in there, you might want to start considering some of the research that's coming out about the safety that the whole body incurs by training the neck, and that includes the jaw as well. You know, as simple as putting a mouthpiece in does not stop that subconcussive force to your brain. You also there's more recently, 2015, 2016 already. There's actually research that's saying that if you actually have a head trauma, whether it's subconcussive or concussive, you are 100% more likely to sustain a lower body injury, and that could be a hamstring or an ACL. So if we can prevent those two injuries just by training the neck, I think it should be important in all of our programs, not just for athletes. If you take a typical strength program for the head, neck, and upper back, let's call it a comprehensive program, which that isn't defined by anybody, but let's just call it that because that's something we should start considering how to define it. If you increase the strength by 1%, you decrease your potential for concussion by 1 pound. You decrease your percentage chance for concussions by 5%. So I think it's a very little bit of work that needs to go into that to get a lot of benefit out of that time you spend protecting the number one organ of the body.
Are you optimistic about coaches being more privy to this idea, focusing on the neck, the upper back, the jaws, the head?
I think more people need to discuss it. I mean, there's a movie out on it, but no one wants to discuss it. I mean, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I just got the agendas for some of the major conferences, events, national, international events of the year, and I didn't see any presentations talking about the head, neck, and upper back, and I've submitted to every single one of them. So I think we need to take a little bit of due diligence on our side as far as membership. Remember, our membership dollars pay their agendas and their itinerary, and I'm not trying to pick a fight or try to get out in front of somebody here. That's not the deal. But we need to consider maybe some things there to help protect our athletes. Are we doing the best that we can do to support or encourage ultimate performance? I mean, ultimately, we're trying to enhance performance, minimize injuries, educate in the field, and really try to teach a lifelong skill.
Yeah, and just to reinforce, I don't think you're throwing anyone under the bus. You have the heart of a teacher. You just want to teach and to listen to other people. So that being said, are you comfortable talking a little bit about the mainstream educational circuit in strength and conditioning and what's lacking in terms of gaps? Because I've heard you talk about it before, but maybe this is your chance to maybe talk a little bit more about what's missing and what could be improved on that.
Yeah, I have no problem talking about what we do and what has helped us, and then everybody else can make their own decisions as far as what will work for them in their program. I'm not a big fan of when I started in this field, I definitely would have went head to head with you and sat down and told you were wrong and I was right. I don't know if anybody's wrong, and I don't know if anybody's ever right, to be very honest. But we can look at research, we can look at results. I'm very lucky to work with some athletes that have done amazing things. So the performance side, I got wrapped up as far as that goes. I mean, I have a very unique background. If you go to robtaylorjr as in junior.com, you can review my background in the field. Some people, train one athlete, they consider themselves, they want to tell a story. I've been doing it all my life. I really don't know anything else other than athletics. So it's just really an honor to share my passion for helping others.
Another thing I had listed here as what makes Smarter Team Training unique is you don't believe in Olympic lifting, do you?
We do absolutely zero Olympic lifting unless an athlete is going to go to a college program, and then we will bring in an Olympic lifting coach for generally the last 3 or 4 weeks to go over some of the major points, because everybody does coach them a little differently. I'm not a big fan of adding momentum to a strength exercise. If there is momentum in a lift, is there stress on the muscle? If there's no stress on the muscle, And what are we really doing to justify or stimulate adaptation in that muscle?
Uh-huh.
I don't know if there's, again, is there a better way? If you need to get powerful, strong people, you can more than welcome to come to the facility and check them out. I mean, they're very strong. They're powerful. We have 14-year-olds that can touch the backboard. I don't know if we need to. I mean, the Olympic lifts or anything else. I mean, we could talk about foam rolling and so many other things in our field that kind of just they're okay because people don't question it. It doesn't change the chemical composition of the body. Genetics still play a gigantic role. I'd actually try to argue that the mindset of the individual, being a positive type person, will be maybe even more potentially positive as far as the outcome goes. We got to discuss eating, sleeping, and hydrating. And then we can talk about your magical program that you have an emotional attachment to, and you don't want to consider maybe that there's something else that you're missing in the program. So, and I do that too, to be very fair. Every night at the end of the day, we sit down with the staff, and I think you get a chance to witness our lunchtime quick meeting that we normally do for 15 to 20 minutes. And we grill each other. We ask people why we didn't do X or why we didn't do Y or why we did do X or Y,
Right.
Just to keep enhancing what's going on. I mean, you got to ask sometimes, have a plan and then ask a question about how we can adjust that plan to make it the best opportunity for the individual to be successful.
Hey, so, on a personal level, was it hard for you to make that decision that I was going to do zero Olympic lifting? Because for some folks, that's the holy grail. And I'm sure you've experienced this before. When you tell them I do zero Olympic lifting, they just write you off from the beginning. So was it personally hard for you to take that stance, and is it still hard today to take that stance?
Nah, it's not hard for me because the kids come first. I don't have an agenda. I'm very lucky, and again, I'm on the show here because of the success of others. I'm on many shows. I get interviewed. But it's because of the success of others. I've just given them a path, and they've ate it up, man. I tell you, to get somebody motivated or inspired or to find the button that pushes to get them to really go is incredible. But when I look at Olympic lifts and you ask a coach, hey, how many coaching cues are in one rep? And they don't know. That makes me a little nervous. But then you're going to ask them to do 3, 4, 5 reps. So you multiply it by 5, let's call it. And then you got 10 platforms going at once, and you're one coach in the room. That's a pretty skilled lift, and I don't know if I'm comfortable putting my athletes in a situation where I cannot physically help them in every portion of the lift. So I would assume that the injury potential there would go up. And the goal of strength and conditioning, in my opinion, in the weight room should be zero injuries in the weight room. And I don't care about the people who go, well, if you're training hard, you'll get hurt. I disagree wholeheartedly. I mean, we don't have injuries from the time I was in college to the time we're in the pros, to the time we're now in the private sector. If you are having injuries, and this message goes out to parents or athletes, if you're in a situation where the coach ain't watching and you're getting hurt, you might want to reconsider where you're going.
Yeah. Next topic here, we're going to talk a little bit about recovery. So you could say that this is one of the bigger trends in strength and conditioning today. Our role at Team Builder, we're not strength coaches, but we speak with hundreds of strength coaches every day, so we'd like to observe trends and discuss them and just be a part of the conversation. I think the idea behind recovery is that coaches have figured out that we have athletes in the weight room for about an hour in the day, maybe an hour and a half if we're lucky. And then the rest of the day, we don't have direct control. But if we can optimize what happens there, then we can take that hour and optimize it and make it better and improve the gains in our athletes. So there's a lot of effort to being more involved in athletes' lives outside of the weight room. Do you do that, and how do you do it?
Yeah, I think we need to change a little bit of how we approach the workout. Today's workout, whether it's 30 minutes, and we'll have 20, 25-minute workouts today, all the way to 90 to 2-hour practices. But let's say we get a 25-minute, 30-minute session in with us today, and you're doing just strength training. We actually are trying to sell you on the concept that your last 48 to 72 hours since we saw you is what's dictating the performance in that one session. So every day you come and see us, you're actually getting evaluated as in a test, comparing how well you ate, slept, hydrated, and removed stress from your life in the previous 48 to 72 hours. If you can do a good job of that, you will inherently get stronger. You will get fitter. You will become a little more resilient when it comes to the mental side of things because you are fresher mentally. So we try to change that mindset. We don't really do the whole, hey, come in and work out today because tomorrow you'll be stronger. The opposite is true, I think. If you eat horribly, if you don't sleep, if you got too much stress going on in your life, and then you try to come in and work out, you're just never going to see the gains with an S or a Z there, depending on how someone wants to pronounce it.
I prefer Z personally.
Correct. I mean, you're just not going to see what you want to see as far as the effort you're putting into chasing your own goals or your own results or your own performance. So yeah, I think the recovery aspect is huge. I mean, as soon as we're done with our sessions, if you go to recoverypump.com, and I don't mean to be plugging things here, but these are things we use. It's like a massage that we use afterwards, and it's a compression-based scenario. I'm not a gigantic fan of ice when there's no trauma to the muscle, and that's now becoming more and more mainstream in the NATA type scenario, those events in the athletic training sports medicine side of things. But we haven't used ice for a very long time, even if it's I don't want to call it a minor injury, but let's say you roll your ankle. Our first go-to thing generally is not icing it. As far as our physical therapists and stuff that we work with, we're actually trying to compress that area, try to move that fluid. And so the recovery pumps do a great job of just swelling and relaxing and adding consistent pressure to that. So we do use that on a big basis afterwards. I mean, some people comment about lymph nodes and some other things there that limit the recovery process. Not the as you implied, you get an hour with me or 30 minutes with me. That's something a facility or a strength coach or a physical therapist or a sport coach can use either between games, after practices, or after training. That really doesn't take time from them. As soon as you see it set up, you clip them in, you hit the button, and you go. I mean, I think when you came in, you saw a bunch of people, even some of our Olympic swimmers, just hanging out, laying in them. They were doing homework or Snapchatting or whatever else they were doing. So it doesn't limit life, but it does help your performance in the end as far as the recovery goes, in my opinion.
Yeah, so recovery is a philosophy. It's not just after the workout, it's before the workout. It's basically a lifestyle thing. I totally agree with the philosophy. I think it's great that people are talking about this because, when I was in high school, it was you would do the workout and then you move on with your life. And whatever your lifestyle was outside the weight room, that's fine as long as you get the workout in. I think our coach was happy with that. Not the case anymore. What about technology's role in recovery? You are in tune with technology, not only using it for your business, but you're very open to trying out other technologies. Are you happy with the technology in strength and conditioning today, or are you hopeful that it will get better?
Oh, I'm always going to hope that it gets better. But I will, and you and I had open conversations that I don't know if we want to go down that road on the show here, but I'll give a little bit of it.
No, go ahead. We're as transparent as you are.
Okay. And if people who come and visit realize that I'm very, very open to these types of conversations as well as others. But I used to present for Polar about our heart rate program when I was at Loyola 10, 12 years ago. And the conversation hasn't changed. Again, go on the agenda of the major strength and conditioning resources, and they're still talking about heart rate training. And there's other technologies out there now, but we're still stuck on this concept of heart rate training. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's because of sponsor pays the money and then we get a chance to speak on it, but then they don't, there's conflict of interest, but no one wants to discuss that. Is there enough data? Another thing, is there enough data points from using other technology? And we can use Omega Wave or Catapult or some of these other outstanding resources. I just don't know. I mean, we go to a situation like a questionnaire, like you and I talked about on a daily basis, or even an every other day basis, like through Team Builder, we could set up potentially a questionnaire that gets sent out. It has 3, 4, 5 general questions. How did you sleep? How was our hydration? How sore are you? What did you think of practice? How do you feel between your relationships between your teammates? I mean, as a coach, those are all really, really vital, data points that don't take a whole lot of research to figure out. I mean, did you drink enough fluid last night? I mean, you can have a color scheme there that kind of says, depending on how you pee, what color you are and how hydrated you are. And you can help those young athletes really learn a little bit about their body just from that alone, and they can see how just increasing their fluid intake can add, energy to their day. And I don't want to get water intake with calories and that type of thing. But if you're dehydrated, you're gonna be a little more lethargic. Well, then if that can help that, if that can happen, then what happens if I eat better food? And then what happens if I get a little more sleep? And what happens if I start getting rid of that stress that really doesn't matter, that extra boyfriend or girlfriend that's giving me a little bit of a headache? Those things, maybe starting with water is a big one. As far as technology as a whole go, again, let's go back to the Olympic lifting type scenario again. I'm not trying to bash anybody at all because everyone has different budgets. We do no Olympic lifts. We try to minimize anything that's momentum based. But in our program, we do have a power program, and it is justified by technology that monitors bar speed. If you're if you can't monitor the bar speed, but you're telling me that the speed of the bar is dictating your performance or your strength outcome, then what are you really measuring or not? You don't really have anything to measure it against. So then it just turns into picking it up and putting it down.
And go ahead and tell everyone who you use to do the velocity tracking with, because you know everyone's going to ask right after this.
Okay, I didn't know if that was good or bad.
No, go ahead.
Okay, we use Elite Form on all of our racks. And then one of the things that we've been discussing with you and Elite Form together, we're trying to find a way to take their strength planner and make that more efficient. So if you go to these different resources, and again, if we're going to be transparent, my situation, I believe that if you do 7 reps of whatever weight today and you do them disciplined and really well, then you should set up an expectation tomorrow to try to do 8, or the next time you come in. But try to do 8. And a lot of the technology as far as the strength planner, the programming design type scenario, the workout tracking stuff, is trying to make it overly complicated and trying to create magical percentage-based schemes and undulating, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if the muscle knows anything about that. I mean, you're telling me at 5 reps the muscle knows to do something differently than at 6? I just don't know. I don't know if I buy into that wholeheartedly. So I think we need to try to back up, try to make it more simple. We live in a profession or work in a profession or are fortunate to share our passion in a profession that's more like a slow cooker than a crock pot than it is a microwave. In the world we live in, I just think that everyone's looking for a magic pill or they're looking for the super secret program or the newest technology to track their running that we do or whatever. And I just don't know if it's the technology's fault or the fact that we just might not have enough passion to get up every morning, enough discipline to get up every morning, enough people surrounding us with positive attitudes to help inspire us to get up every morning and really try to push the envelope as far as what the physical body can endure.
Yeah. The technology by definition is something that improves efficiency. It's not something that's going to fundamentally change anything and give you a silver bullet. So you're totally right. The fundamentals stay the same. The technology are just accents on top of that.
I think we're actually in the beginning parts of this technology. I mean, I'm hoping that 10 years from now, you and I have a conversation and we sit down and go look at this podcast. How cool is the field now?
Yeah.
And we can sit down and track some of these things. And the people who've gotten on the front side of this are trying to figure it out. You included it. And I have to applaud your passion as well for coming to meet coaches like myself and others around the country, because I know you do get a chance to go to different venues at the high school, the college, the pro level, and you're asking great questions. I mean, what do you know now that you wish you knew then, and what has worked for you? And you sat down and had those types of questions, and you took notes, and you instantly sent emails back. So anybody who's listening to this, Hewitt did a really good job coming to our facility, and I'm not just doing that because I'm on the show with him, because I present and speak other places, and people do ask the technology question just like you asked. And I'm very open and candid. If someone comes in our facility and I don't think the potential is there for us to work with them or maybe that they haven't figured it out yet, I'm very open on that end too.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm embarrassed. But look, I knock on a lot of doors, and Rob, before I could even knock, swung his door open and said, "Come on in, let's learn together." And that was cool. And that's the experience that I really appreciate from you, Rob. So let's move on and talk about, let's just keep talking about Elite Form. So velocity-based tracking. I'm surprised by the fact that a lot of high school customers of Team Builder come to us and want to start getting into this. And of course, we have our partners, we have people that we work with, and we integrate and whatever. But I'm thinking to myself, man, these high school coaches that are training many, many athletes, are they going to have time to sit down and sift through the data? I mean, is this the right direction for them at this point in time? What's your opinion on a high school coach with multiple teams doing velocity-based tracking?
If you're going to put a velocity-based exercise in your program, then in my opinion, you should have some tool to justify the speed of the bar or the resistance you're moving. And if you don't, I don't know if you're doing as much as you can to help the athlete. And then that makes me a little nervous as a coach, a parent, or even what should be an athlete at that point. If you're saying move the bar faster, but I can't track it or get instant feedback, that makes me very nervous.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just not. I'm not getting as much information as possible. The other part of it, we live in a world now where athletes enjoy. They're stimulated by instant feedback. So to be able to have some type of video component to not only talk about range of motion or how you did a repetition or what a good repetition should look like, and do it almost instantly, I think that's a huge thing as far as the training adaptations as far as the skill acquisition of things. If you can show somebody that they're extremely valgus when they're pulling, or they're not sitting their hips underneath something, or maybe their elbows are flaring, I mean, or we'll talk about the neck, just have their head out of position. I think we're doing a lot more on the sport side of things, the sports skill acquisition side of things. And I think we need to start trying to figure out a way to get that involved in the strength, in the weight room, the performance side of what we're doing. And it's just, again, the elite form, I can just bang on that video monitor and be able to see that real quickly. And it's really cool to get a chance to see that. Now you put velocity with movement, and I think people start adding up that pretty quickly. As you implied, we're in a situation, again, where can you track velocity, and does that mean it's a good rep? If it's a good rep, then you need a minimum speed if you're going to be a velocity-based. If you're going to be a high-intensity, no momentum type base, is there a velocity that's too high, which you would say theoretically momentum has been achieved, and then we don't count reps that are above that speed.
Yeah.
So we use it both ways, and as well as in the past, we've used other systems as well. So we're all just trying to find out the best recipe that works for us all.
Yeah, and I truly believe that. You guys are very open to trying out the new things out there, and certainly not attached emotionally to anything. Like you said earlier, people get attached to their workout programming, which kind of leads me to my next point. I've got good momentum when switching topics. So I did a podcast the other day with Patrick McHenry, who is a high school strength coach and a PE teacher, and he's deeply involved with the NSAA. I believe he sits on the board. And he said that back in the day, he used to ask collegiate coaches for the workout program. What he wanted to look at them, he wanted to implement them. And one coach just said, no, I'm not going to give you my workout programming. He said, strength and conditioning is an art as much as it is a science. It's about being with the kids, seeing them, feeling them, understanding them. And you can't take programs and then just throw them on top of another kid in a different setting and expect it to work the same way. But sometimes sports coaches at the high school level feel like they have to do this. The high school coaches are busy. They're not certified. They have to do yard work on the field. They have to teach, have to do all this stuff. And they think, man, I just want to go get the Alabama football program and just put this into my weight room. I explained it a little bit. Can you put it a little bit more elegantly, what I just said? Why is it not good for a coach to just take programs and repurpose them in the weight room in a different setting?
Yeah, I have a couple different storylines on this one. If you wouldn't mind, bear with me.
Go ahead.
I used to be the guy in college that people would email and visit or buy the strength manual at an event, and they would, like you said, just expect that to be the black and white blueprint. This is what we're going to do because that's what they do at X, and I just don't know if that's the right way. So after a few years of doing that, I used to come up with a high school manual that gave them a basic 2 push, 2 pull, 1 horizontal, 1 vertical. If you wanted a multiple set option, you could. Then we would do something very similar to the lower body. We would give them some very standard type stuff for conditioning. And I don't mean typical 300-yard shuttles and blow the whistle because you're doing a suicide is what you and I would call it way back in the day, but they don't call it that anymore.
Uh-huh.
I just don't think that that's the right approach. I do think you have to look at your kids and find out what works. I mean, I worked with we get a chance to work with a lot of high school programs, a lot of AAU programs now. And I'll tell you what, a lot of the times it's not a matter of strength and conditioning. It's a lot of supporting a teammate and believing in a relationship between you and another. Are you really going to be committed to getting to the spot so that they can make a pass and you can execute the shot? That might be more important when you're working with younger kids and teaching them that just because you're a starter doesn't mean your role is any less or greater on the team. Or if you are a starter, I mean, both ways. Those things right now, because of this instant gratification society that we live in, I got to be a starter. I got to play all the minutes. I got to make the big shots. I got to make the most score. Make most points and the biggest hit. I just don't know if that's what sports is trying to teach us as far as lessons. So as a coach, I think we need to instill that some of those relationships or those learning moments are way more important than what we're going to learn in the weight room. But then you can transfer that and say, hey, what we do here does have a huge impact on that performance, on your health at practice, your energy at practice, the ability for you to be ready for the moment when it's called. If someone does go down, are you willing to step up and actually help your team, that next man up or the next woman up personality? I mean, if you start thinking about all the ways you can positively impact an individual through the passion that we share on a regular basis, it's much, much, much greater than the simple concept of bench, squat, and clean. So
yeah.
And we're very lucky to do that on a regular basis, and that becomes more of a foundation piece for us. As far as high school coaches that don't quote unquote have enough time, uh, shame on you. Because if you think with no time that you can do something that benefits somebody else, I think that's a wrong approach. I'm a very busy individual, but I don't take on a football team and try to be the head coach of that and do that kind of half speed. I think that would be frowned upon, because that's not what it is. But in our profession, or as a whole, skill sports and sport coaching, they can do it half speed, and people are okay with that.
Yeah.
I really think that the successful coaches are looking to find ways, and if it costs money, reaching back to their parents and saying, hey, if we split this number up amongst, sometimes 10, sometimes 20, sometimes 50 athletes, the number really gets small, and we can handle that and bring a professional in, not just in my area, but areas around the entire country, and then hold that individual accountable to the impact that he's making on the team. And I don't mean just the weight room. Anybody can yell and scream at somebody, but it's a lot. It takes a special person to pick somebody up and really encourage greatness in another.
Yeah, and that's totally right. And I think this is what we mean when we say the new strength coach. We're kind of getting rid of this old stereotype of the guy yelling in the weight room and trying to squeeze every last rep out of each athlete. But more like the guy like, Coach Vanderbush sat down and talked about doing the other day. Hey, if my athlete is not succeeding in the weight room, I change the program, but more importantly, I sit down and I ask them, are you stressed? What's going on at home? How are you eating? How are you sleeping? That's the new strength coach, the one that connects with the athletes and builds that trust relationship. You often hear the stat, with college coaches, the collegiate strength coach spends more time with the athletes than the actual collegiate coaches. And that's why it's even more important to have that trust relationship, because quite frankly, and statistically speaking, a lot of collegiate athletes have said that they do not trust their college coaches, and that's kind of unfortunate. Let's stay in the high school discussion, and this will be our last topic before we wrap this thing up. I'm a millennial. My generation gets knocked a lot. We're the technology generation. We have the short attention span. We're interested in instant gratification, the internet, everything. But then I ask other folks and I say, what about the parent generation? Has this generation changed? It would be Generation X. I've heard that this generation is more overbearing. It's more helicopter parents. They're more involved with their athletes, and it's taken youth sports and taken it in a direction for the worse in the last 10, 20 years. Now, I haven't been around and I'm not deeply involved in youth sports, but I know you are and you have a passion for it. So can you tell me a little bit about what you think the state of youth sport is today, and how the parents are different nowadays than they were when maybe you were playing youth sports?
Yeah, one big thing, we'll go back to education. And I think when a parent comes into our program, we kind of, I don't want to say cut it off in the beginning, but education becomes a big part. I want the parent to come around and actually watch what we're doing, how we're interacting. I actually had them actively involved in either the first or second or third session, and it might be me with that individual for an hour, and the intern's actually taking them through. So now I'm coaching the intern's coaching the athlete, and then I'm actually teaching the parent. And as soon as you start building that rapport with the individual, or finding out what kind of questions they actually have, you develop that relationship, and they want to come back and learn more, and they actually want to be able to share your message with their son or daughter in the car. As you talked about, statistically speaking, after a game, the number one thing that kids hate is the car ride home. Again, in this generation that we've created, everybody's a coach. Everybody in the sideline is a coach. I mean, we watch ESPN, and everybody has feedback about why so-and-so couldn't catch the ball, even though somebody that's criticizing him couldn't run the 20-yard route or outrun the other guy that runs a 4 or 5. But everybody has their own opinion, and they feel like they're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Completely cool. I live in an environment where athletics is fun, and I want to see fanatics in the stands, but I can't have a fanatic in the car. Thing a parent needs to say, or a teammate can say to another teammate, is, I enjoyed watching you play. I enjoyed, in this scenario like you're talking about with the weight room, I just need a parent to say, I enjoyed watching you work out, or you showing discipline, or a positive attitude, or meant to be mentally, physically tough, or just willing to give more effort than anyone else on your team or anyone else on a day-to-day basis to achieve your goals. I mean, that might have more weight, and I don't mean to use it from a strength standpoint, but the more weight or an impact on that young athlete. And that young athlete, I mean, we're talking all the way to college. I mean, I get a chance to work with 11, 12-year-olds all the way up to the college or pro level, and sometimes just shaking them their hand and saying, well, job well done, or I believe in you. I mean, those simple messages can go a long way. But as far as parenting goes, I think marketing is leading the way. So they read that quickly, and then they assume that you can change X, Y, and Z in the same amount of time that cracked macaroni and cheese can be made. I just don't know if that's the case, and I think that goes back to education. I think shame on us as a field for allowing people to do that and encouraging that. Again, maybe that's a conversation we present at a conference, moving forward. But if you're looking to train, to change someone's running mechanics, the body will protect the brain. The brain itself will protect itself. If you're not training the neck to try to keep your head more stable, I don't know if you can actually change running mechanics.
Yeah.
The body's going to protect its head. So if you're not training the neck in that program, I don't know if you're getting what you're buying. If you want to work with speed training, and all you're doing is watching them run around cones and dance their feet back and forth, and you're not really sprinting, you got to question what you're getting. If you have hamstring issues and no one's actually doing full speed sprinting, you're probably not getting what you want. So you just got to kind of look at the service that's being provided in the field and the results that they're getting with your particular child or athlete as a whole.
I love your insight there, because I think my first instinct, if I were a strength coach, having to deal with overbearing parents, is to just cut them out of the equation. That's sort of how we do things as a business here, but not really. You're saying the opposite. Bring them in, educate them. Sorry, not to lose momentum here. I was just saying, you're saying the opposite. Bring them in, include them, educate them. It's the best thing you can do, which I love. It's just a fantastically brilliant philosophy.
People that are passionate, I want to be around. But we also got to make sure that they're passionate about the right things. And something that helps the individual we're getting a chance to work with achieve their own goal. Who says you can't other than you? I mean, if someone else says it, that means nothing. But if in your head you start saying, I can't, you won't. But if I get people that surround you that says you can, you're 100% more likely to achieve something more than you would have done on your own. Yeah,
I agree. And we've kind of grown a passion here for helping high school coaches, and we've understood that high school strength coaching is not about the relationship between athletes and weights or coaches and weights. It's people. It's coaches and student athletes and the parents, and it's really a people business is what the strength and conditioning industry is, which I think is just awesome. And I think more conversations should be had around that topic. And big credit to the people out there who do that. I've seen a few of them talk about the relationship aspect. It's vastly important. So that's kind of it for now. Rob, yeah, go ahead.
I'll give you a quick one before we go. If you're trying to look and trying to figure out how you can encourage relationships on your team, here's 3 things you can do tomorrow. When you see those individuals come into training or the sports or whatever, they come home from school as a parent, ask, give, and touch. If you ask them how their day was and listen, you'll be 100% more likely to develop a relationship. If you give them something, and I don't mean like advice or instruction, but like we do it, we just give them a towel. You're giving energy from you to them. And then you physically touch, whether it's high fives or some type of positive interaction that involves a positive touch. You will just inherently grow a better relationship with individuals. And that could be husband and wives, it could be boyfriend, girlfriends, or it could be teammate to teammate, administrator to coach. Those are things you need to do if you want to develop positive relationships with people around you.
I love it. It's brilliant. I'm going to tweet that as soon as we get off of this thing, because I think that's just absolutely brilliant. That's awesome. Rob, you're the man. I love your passion. It gets me going. I'm glad that we did this in the morning, because the rest of my day I'm going to be high energy because of this. And before we head out of here, you already mentioned it, but tell people again where they can find more about you in terms of resources.
Yeah, we post the smarterteamtraining.com is the website. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of us. We're actually going through a process behind the scenes here, so whoever's listening to this show, hopefully in the middle of the summer here, we'll have a brand new website that's going to be incredible. We had meetings about it yesterday. Like once a week we have meetings. I'm getting pumped about doing it, and I can't show it. So, but for the most part, I share a ton of stuff, a ton of information, and I don't mean pictures of what I'm eating. I mean coaching information on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you go to Twitter, if you just go to @SmarterTeam, you and I have gone back and forth on there with team builders.
Yeah.
On the Twitter side of things. On Instagram, we're Smarter Team Training. If you go to facebook.com/smarterteamtraining, and then I also post, I've actually interviewed over 700 people in our field, and 300 of those conversations, or almost 300 of those conversations, are live as well on a podcast, sttpodcast.com. It's featured on iTunes and iHeartRadio. That's an incredible resource for coaches who want to learn or network with other individuals in the field. But one big message for your listeners, if you want to help Hewitt out here, one of the best things you can do is rate the show and then leave a review. And I don't care if it's on YouTube or it's on iTunes or whatever else, but the only way that the gentleman like you're listening to or in the show can actually reach more coaches and make an even bigger positive impact is if you spend 10 seconds of your day and just give them a little bit of a 5-star rating wherever it is, or a thumbs up, and then write just a quick review saying thank you for spending some of your time to give back to the profession. That will help this show and people like this who are doing shows like this immensely.
Good advice. I appreciate that, Rob. Everyone, thank you for watching this, and of course you can reach out to Rob and I directly. Rob is a fantastic resource, so please take a look at his podcast and his interviews. He's practically interviewed everyone in the field, and they talk about everything, so it's really fantastic. Rob, I'm going to come up and visit soon and get a workout in this time, and take some pictures with you, man. Just don't kick my butt when I come up there.
Not a problem. I'm sure the guys will be ready to rock when you get here, and we'll have fun doing it, and we'll do a good job of teaching, and as long as you're willing to bring discipline, attitude, toughness, and effort, we'll get the job done.
Hey, I love it. See you there, and thank you, everyone.